Week 0 in the books, 2022 college football season. It's Sunday morning, and that can only mean one thing: the return of the UNCLELOU Your Season is Over videos. This is the Week 0 edition. Not a lot of games yesterday, we get that. But we had a few, so you know what that means. Unfortunately, the majority of college football teams have yet to even take the field and play a game. And we've got some teams whose season has already come to a screeching halt. That's right, we got a few teams here whose season is over. Now, I'll give this disclaimer, since this is the first one of the year and there's probably some new people around here. The Your Season is Over video is not meant to be taken literally, as in your season is literally over, like you can't accomplish anything, you can't win another game, you're not making a bowl game, you're not doing it. The Your Season is Over video is just a recap of the previous day's games where we highlight the losers instead of the winners. That's it. There's plenty of shows all over the place where you can go and look about how great Vanderbilt was yesterday. It's not what this is about. This is about how bad Hawaii was. You get the idea. So we're going to get a million comments every Sunday when I do these. Oh, their season ain't over. What if they do this and this and that and this and this and this and that? That's great. What if they lose in week 4? Well, guess what? They're going to be right back on the Sunday Your Season is Over video again. So anyway, how you take the video is up to you. So anyway, but first of all, how great is it that we finally have college football? This offseason went by fast to me, really fast. Now, it was helped by, similar to last offseason, actually, it was helped along by some big news during the offseason. In a time on the calendar where we normally don't have any college football news at all. In other words, there's no practicing going on. There's nothing going on. But you had big news come out about the expansion, right? With the Big Ten gobbling up Southern Cal and UCLA. And then a few weeks later, the Big Ten signing the huge TV deal and all that. So we had some news during a period of time where we normally don't have anything. It helped to go by a little bit quicker too. But man, it felt good to get up yesterday morning. I put some boiled peanuts on the stove at about 7:30 in the morning yesterday. Had the whole house smelling like peanuts. It's college football time. So anyway, that's the good news. Bad news is we have an amazing list of losers today. That's right, an amazing list of losers. So we're going to highlight the list of losers for Your Season is Over portion of the video, right? Then I'll take a few minutes and talk about some teams that looked good yesterday. And this is the format every Sunday. We'll talk about some teams that won and looked good, some teams that won and looked bad. I'll give you my sort of short Heisman list and who I think are some of the best teams in the country. Now, some of that we can't do today because not enough teams have played. But, we can definitely talk about yesterday's losers and which teams, if any, looked good in winning. Now, where should we start? Well, unfortunately, I think we have to start with the obvious. That's where it belongs, if you want to know the truth, on the floor. We've got to start with the obvious, and of course that is Nebraska. First of all, I don't have any reason to hate Nebraska or dislike Nebraska or want them to lose, or, I've got no beef with Scott Frost. Georgia doesn't have any type of long history with Nebraska, so I'm coming at this from as objective a position as I can. And I'm going to put it as nicely as I can because, like I said, I don't have any ill will towards Nebraska. So I'm going to put this as nice as I can. They're fucking garbage. That's as nice as I can put it. They're horrible. And there's a lot of problems and situations and kind of layers to this onion that we have to peel back. But first off, let's just start with the game yesterday. Worst case scenario occurred yesterday for Nebraska. And that's not just the fact that they lost to a terrible Northwestern team. And yes, Northwestern is terrible. Nebraska beat this same Northwestern team last year by 50 points, 56-7. Now, Nebraska was horrible last year too. That's the point. That horrible-ass Nebraska team from last year beat Northwestern by 50. 8 months to prepare for this game, and they come out and they lose. And it's not just that they lost, it's how they lost, right? This is the exact same way they lost all 9 games that they lost last year. I don't want to take anything away from Northwestern, but Nebraska loses games. Teams Nebraska play don't beat Nebraska. Nebraska beats Nebraska. And they did it again yesterday. And if you're Scott Frost, you're polishing up your resume right now, because I'm telling you, he is not going to be the coach at Nebraska next year. I don't even think he's going to be the coach in Nebraska the last game of this season. In fact, I'll be surprised if he makes it to November. This was a horrendous performance for Scott Frost, that staff, and Nebraska. They pretty much got rid of the entire staff from last year, especially offensively, except Scott Frost. So there's literally no one else to blame. And you might not know this unless you're a Nebraska fan, but the Nebraska fans, one of their biggest beefs with Scott Frost, over and above the fact that he can't win a game, is that he has a hard time taking accountability in post-game press conferences and statements that he makes after losses. A lot of times seeming to blame players or other coaches, right? Those excuses are gone. Now, to Scott Frost's credit, he did seem to take responsibility and accountability for the loss yesterday in the press conference. At least that's what I got out of it. He took complete blame for the onside kick. More on that in a minute. He didn't appear, to me anyway, to be throwing anybody under the bus. So I guess that's good, but it's too little too late from Scott Frost. This guy has got to go. He's got to go. I guess the only reason he's even still there is because he's a quote-unquote Nebraska guy. He played for him back in the 90s, all that kind of stuff. That's great. You can't let loyalty drag your program further into the mud than it already is if you're Nebraska. You have got to cut ties and move on from this clown. You've got to. That onside kick was so ridiculous in so many ways, it's hard to even comprehend how dumb it was. There's the obvious, right? You're up 11. You've scored touchdowns on 2 possessions in a row. Nebraska has not even sniffed the end zone during that period. This occurred in the third quarter, okay? So Nebraska comes out in the third quarter. They score a touchdown on their first drive. Nebraska gets the ball back, or Northwestern gets the ball back, does absolutely nothing. Nebraska gets the ball for their second possession of the third quarter, goes right down the field, scores again. 2 great offensive possessions in a row and a great defensive possession in between. And you're now up by 11 with 9 minutes to go in the third quarter. And you come out and you attempt that onside kick. And of course, Nebraska did not recover it. Northwestern did. And that was the game. Nebraska never scored another point. That was it. The game was over right then. And that is 100% a coaching blunder. And I don't care who made that call, because I've heard this debated yesterday. Well, it was the kicker that did it, because they had this thing in practice where if Northwestern showed him a certain look, then no matter what, he was supposed to do that. Okay, let's assume that's true. You have to be aware of what's going on in the moment, right? So if you're Scott Frost, you have to know, okay, I know we practiced this all week about if you see this look or that look at the onside kick, but listen, you have to sit the kicker down before he goes out there and you say, look, we've scored on back-to-back possessions. The defense is playing well. We're up by 11. All the momentum is on our side. No matter what, don't do the onside kick. Even if they give you the look that we told you to look for, don't do it. So that's on Scott Frost. I heard some people say, well, the special teams coach called it. Well, the same thing. The coaches wear headsets for a reason. There's not an offensive play, a defensive play, or a special teams play that's called that the head coach is not aware of, period. And you have to have veto authority. Scott Frost has to step in right then if he hears that on the headset and say, whoa, no. I know that was the plan, but look where we're at in the game right now. We're up 11, 9 minutes to go in the third, scored on back-to-back possessions. They haven't done anything this half offensively. Nix that. That didn't happen. And that was the game. It was over. And then to make matters worse, Northwestern gets the ball back with literally 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter around their own 10 or 15 yard line. Nebraska is down at that point by 3. They need a stop and to get the ball back, obviously, so that their offense can either try to win the game or get into field goal range to try to tie the game, right? 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. That is plenty of time. Northwestern, who had thrown the ball all over Nebraska all day. Northwestern had over 500 yards of offense in this game. 500. You might look at the score and not realize that, because in today's college football, 31 points is not considered a ton, right? You got teams scoring 40 and 50 points across the country almost every single week. But just the score alone doesn't tell you how bad Nebraska's defense was in this game. But the last possession that Northwestern had in this game does tell you how bad Nebraska's defense is. Northwestern gets the ball back with 8 minutes to go. Nebraska needs the ball back, no ifs, ands, or buts. They're down 3, 8 minutes to go. Northwestern gets the ball inside their own 20. They literally ran the exact same running play 12 times in a row. 12. The same formation, the same play, to the same running back, into the same hole. And yeah, Nebraska made a stop here or there. Stop them for no gain. 1 yard, 2 yards. But then without fail, 8, 9, 10, 11-yard pop up. It was right up the middle. Boom, 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 boom. And Nebraska, there was nothing Nebraska could do. That is the most demoralizing thing that can happen to a defense. When you know that the offense is about to line up, run the ball right at you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And there was nothing Nebraska could do. Northwestern got the ball with 8 minutes left. They took that thing all the way down to like a minute to go. And then Nebraska gets the ball back and, of course, throws an interception or whatever it is, and that ended the game with but it was just horrendous to watch. Horrendous. You have got to part ways with Scott Frost. Now, I actually talked to a guy this morning. He's been around the channel for a while. I'm not going to give his name because he might not want that out, or whatever. Anyway, but he's close to the program. He traveled with the team to Ireland to watch the game, so I'll just leave it at that. So he's not just some jamoke, okay? We all know Scott Frost got brought in at the end of last season. His contract got restructured. His buyout got lowered. We all know about all that, right? Well, apparently, another clause in the buyout portion of that contract, the buyout goes way down October 1st. Around that time on the schedule, Nebraska plays, I believe it's Minnesota and Purdue. It doesn't matter. Anyway, they play a couple of games after October 1st, and then they have a bye week. And according to this individual, who, like I said, traveled to the game with the team, Scott Frost is going to be fired before that bye week, so that whoever they promote to interim head coach has 2 weeks to prepare the team for the rest of the season after that. We'll see if that happens. I think we all know right now that Scott Frost is not coaching Nebraska next season. So it's really just a guessing game at this point in terms of, when do they decide to pull the trigger. And because the calendar in college football has been pushed up so far because of early signing day, you're going to see more and more coaches get fired, I think, in the middle of seasons because it gives you a head start on your coaching search. And you might want to have a coach name before that early signing day. I don't know. But even if you don't have one name before the early signing day, you've got the regular signing day in February. You need to have a short list by the first week of December, really, if you can, and maybe even a head coach name by the first or second week of December. Anyway, so we all know he's getting fired now. It's just a matter of when. Every time we talk about a coach getting fired, I get the comment, well, if you fire Scott Frost, who you going to get to replace him, and how you know he's going to do any better? You never know. You never know. There are no guarantees. But here's the deal. Once you decide you want to fire a coach, you got to fire him. It doesn't matter who you think you might be able to get or not to replace him. As soon as you decide that a coach has outlived his usefulness, you have to cut ties. You got to let him go. You got to send him out of town on the first thing smoking. You got to get rid of him. You can't try to hire a coach before you fire the current one. Now, we've seen some of that happen, most notably last year with Miami and Mario Cristobal. But generally speaking, once you decide you don't want a coach, you got to get rid of him. Then you go out and you do your search or whatever and you name a new one. So that's one thing. Here's the other thing. Nebraska fans might need to recalculate their expectations for what Nebraska is and can be as a football program in modern college football, in today's college football, the way things are structured now. The reality of the situation is that there just aren't a lot of high-level high school football recruits in the Midwest right now over where Nebraska is. Yeah, you got Pennsylvania and Ohio, but I don't know how many people consider that the Midwest. But so Nebraska's got to go all over the place to try to recruit kids to come to Lincoln, Nebraska. I mean, look, it is what it is. It's not a destination right now, okay? I know you were great in the 90s and in decades prior to that. But the truth of the matter is there's not a single high school recruit alive on planet Earth anywhere Who remembers Nebraska being anything other than a doormat? On top of that, it's in the middle of nowhere. You know, people get mad when I kind of trash talk states a little bit. And look, I've got no problem with Nebraska. I've never been there, and I'll never go there. Well, why would I? I mean, I don't know why anybody would go there. But the point is, you know, I don't know how many high school kids are sitting around in 9th and 10th grade going, man, I hope Nebraska gives me an offer. I sure would love to spend the next 3 or 4 years in Lincoln. I just don't know how much of that is happening. The other thing is, as far as what coach you get next, it's going to have to be a version of Scott Frost. I'm not talking about ability-wise or results-wise or whatever, but you're not getting a successful Power 5 coach to leave wherever they're at to come there. You're just not. Maybe you could pull that off 30 years ago, not now. You just can't. So you're going to have to get the next group of 5 guy probably. Would Luke Fickell go to Nebraska? I don't know. I mean, I've always thought that if Luke Fickell leaves Cincinnati, it's going to be for a Big Ten job, and Nebraska is Big Ten, but are they really Big Ten, though? So, I don't know. That would be, to me, the home run, if you were somehow to pull that off. Short of that, I don't know. Take your pick of whatever group of 5 guys out there, because you're not doing what Southern, in other words, you're not going to do what Southern Cal did and go get a Lincoln Riley. You're not going to do what LSU did and go get a Brian Kelly. It's not going to happen. And the days of Nebraska competing for national titles might just be over no matter who you get, okay? It's a hard pill to swallow, but, you know, it might need to be that Nebraska fans need to realize that a 10-win season and an opportunity maybe at a New Year's Six game might be the peak and the pinnacle of what Nebraska's capable of doing in today's college football. Sorry, just my opinion, but Nebraska, your season is over. Let's check the copious notes. Who's next on the doo-doo list? Oh, my God. What about this? What about this? Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time trash talking Hawaii because it's Hawaii. Let's put this down here. How about that? Put that right there. Yeah, let's do that. Put that right there. Hawaii is horrible. Hawaii is horrible. And they got absolutely destroyed by Vandy. And, you know, people are going to say, why would Vandy brag about beating Hawaii? Nobody else would brag about beating Hawaii. Well, no one else is Vandy. Regardless of what you think about Hawaii or Vandy, this is a good win for Vandy. I mean, the over-under win total for Vandy this year was 2.5, and that was dependent on them beating Hawaii. So, and they, not only did they beat Hawaii, they just drug them up and down the field like a dead body, especially in the second half. The game was a little competitive in the first quarter and even into the second quarter, but in the second half, Hawaii just couldn't do anything. Hawaii had 10 points in the second quarter, never scored again. Vandy just kept scoring until the clock hit zeros. 63 points they scored, 63-10. Vandy has not scored 63 points in a game. Are you ready for this? Since 1969. 1969. So I'm not on here trying to say, Vandy's going to win 8 games now or anything like that. No, it's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that they are clearly better than they were last year. Clearly. I don't care that it was Hawaii, because Vandy played some bad teams last year and barely won. I mean, I think they played UConn. Who else did they play? I think they played Colorado State. I mean, so they played some bad teams last year. 63 points Vandy scored yesterday. That's over twice as many points as they scored in any game last year. I think 31 points was the most they scored in a game last year. They gave up 10 points yesterday. That's less than half the number of points they gave up in their best defensive performance of the year last year. I think 24 points, or 21 or 24. I should have wrote it down, but it's either 21 or 24 points was the least amount of points Vandy gave up all of last year. They gave up 10 yesterday. So, again, this shouldn't be blown out of proportion or context to whereas, Georgia better watch out for Vandy, or Tennessee better watch out for Vandy, or whoever else. Vandy's still going to be lucky to win even one game this year in the SEC. I'll tell you what does look like a more interesting game today than it did yesterday morning. Vandy and Mizzou. Everybody has Vandy picked 7th in the SEC East, and they've got Mizzou picked 6th. Now, we haven't seen Mizzou play yet, but look, again, regardless of what you think about Vandy or Hawaii, every college football fan on planet Earth today thinks Vanderbilt is a little bit better than they thought they were, right? You don't beat somebody 63-10 if you're last year's Vandy team, or even a year before, or however far you want to go back. So that was an impressive win for Vandy. and ends Hawaii's season. So congratulations, Hawaii. Now, who's up next on the doo-doo list? Oh, this won't take long either. Again, it's week 0. We don't have a lot to work with here. FAMU, yeah. I feel bad for FAMU. They were missing 25 players from yesterday's game against North Carolina. Didn't matter. North Carolina went out and beat the bejesus out of them. What did the final score of that one end up being? 56-24. And there's only really a couple of things I want to talk about with this game. Number one is North Carolina's quarterback situation. You know, Sam Howell was there for 3 years. Disappointing year last year, but still overall a pretty good career at North Carolina. And there was a lot of questions about how well the next quarterback would play, whoever it ended up being. It ended up being this May guy or whatever his name is. And he played pretty good. I mean, North Carolina had about 300 yards passing and about 300 yards rushing, so a balanced attack, scored a bunch of points. Now, he doesn't run around that much. I think he had 4 carries for 40 or 50 yards, which is good for a quarterback, but he's not one of these quarterbacks, at least it didn't appear in yesterday's game, that's going to be running the ball, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a game for 100 yards or anything. But he was accurate with the ball, a couple of touchdowns. Offensively, I thought North Carolina looked pretty good. What surprised me about this game was North Carolina's defense. Now, against the run, they were great. They didn't give up. They gave up less than 100 yards rushing for the entire game. Again, this is against FAMU, though. But North Carolina is supposed to have one of the best defenses in the ACC. Some people say 3rd behind Clemson and NC State. Some people say 4th behind Miami. But anyway, the point is, supposed to have one of the best 4 or 5 defenses in the ACC. Mac Brown's been recruiting pretty well since he got to North Carolina, relative to how North Carolina was recruiting before that. I mean, it's not like they're signing top 5 classes, but they're signing better classes than they normally sign. And a lot of the highly rated guys that they've signed have been defensive guys. And, they didn't play bad, but I was surprised they gave up 24 points to FAMU. I know it's an unfair comparison, but, you go back and look at how many points some elite teams are giving up to these lower level schools, and 24 is a lot of points to give up to FAMU, and a lot of that was through the air. I saw some soft coverages from North Carolina yesterday, so not sure what's going on with the secondary, but there's several teams in the ACC going forward that North Carolina's going to have to play, that if they play defensively like they played yesterday, they'll lose those games, And again, I know it's hard to judge off of FAMU, and in the second half, when you have a big lead, how hard is everybody trying? Are the backups in? I get all that. So I'm not throwing North Carolina under the bus. Congratulations on the win. You 1-0. You definitely know who your quarterback is. The backup did play some in the fourth quarter. I don't think he never even attempted a pass, though. But again, they were up by 30 points. Didn't even attempt to pass, but he did run around a little bit. But it's pretty obvious to me that the guy that started the game yesterday for North Carolina is starting every game this year, barring injury. So we can put that to rest, I guess. Who's next? God, who's next? Come on. You have to have been around this channel for a long time to even understand this. But yes, UTEP did lose yesterday. And you know what? Again, I don't have any hard feelings, ill will, or hate for UTEP. But for whatever reason, UTEP has become like a favorite troll team or comment around here to ask me about, leave comments about, ask me to stream UTEP games, wanting me to do season predictions on UTEP. Again, this goes back years, so if you haven't been around, you won't even understand why I'm talking about UTEP. But the point is, they lost their first game. That's good news for Uncle Lou. I can go ahead and put them onto your season is over list, and I can just ignore all the trolly comments about UTEP for the rest of the year, so that was good news. Now for the surprise team of the day. Barner, we hardly knew you. We hardly knew you. Now you're saying, Uncle Lou, how in the hell can you put the Barn on the your season is over list in week 0 when the Barn didn't even play in week 0? I'm glad you axed. First of all, Auburn's season has been over since last offseason, when all the boosters, about 15 of the players, and about 75% of the fans, and about 50% of the administration tried to fire Brian Harsin last January and February. Auburn's 22 season was over at that point. But specifically, why is it over today? Well, pretty much the only person, well, you did have a few players that came to Brian Harsin's defense. But of course, you had a ton of players that transferred out and then threw Brian Harsin under the bus. They pretty much said, we transferred because Brian Harsin don't know what he's doing. But anyway, so pretty much the only person of authority, the only person, definitely the highest person within the Auburn administration, the one guy that completely had Brian Harsin's back 110% because he had to, was their athletic director, Green. He's the one that made the decision to hire Brian Harsin. Auburn had kind of a messed up coaching search when they fired Gus Malzahn a couple of seasons ago. The word is out in coaching circles, in recruiting circles, and I'm not even just talking head coaching circles, even assistant coaching and position coaching circles, that Auburn administratively and as far as the booster situation is a circus. It's an absolute disaster over there. The boosters think they have way more power than they do. They think they should have even more power than that. They think the athletic director and the administration work for them. They think the head coach works for them. I've talked about this before. I do believe that if you're a high-end donor at a university, you can sort of buy your way in as far as some input goes. But boosters should not have final decision-making authority on these things. And some of these Auburn boosters, they think they're sitting at the big desk. And it's just word has gotten out. So when they fired Malzahn, they had a hard time finding a legitimate head coach that was willing to take on that mess, honestly. And this is how they kind of ended up with Brian Harsin. But the athletic director, Green, went all in on him. I want him. He's my guy. I have faith in him. I trust him. He's going to get us where we want to be, that kind of thing. Well, we all know the disaster that was last year for Auburn. Lost their last 5 or 6 games of the year, whatever it was. Just an absolute implosion. 10, 15 players transferred out, throwing Brian Harsin under the bus on the way. And then in January and February, you had a group of boosters putting stories out anonymously that Brian Harsin was cheating on his wife with an intern that he brought down from Boise State. It was just a mess in January and February. They tried to get him fired. It didn't work. Auburn did a inquiry into the situation. Couldn't find any reason or evidence to fire him, so he's there again this year. And the amount of pressure that was on him was immense. And now the only guy that was in his corner, the athletic director that hired him, is gone. Now, what's weird about even that situation? The athletic director only had 5 months remaining on his contract. This is extremely unusual. Extremely unusual that a major university with a major college football program lets its athletic director get down to where it only has 5 months remaining on its contract. And you usually get an extension well before you get to the point where you're that close to the end of your contract. So the administration, it didn't seem like, was supporting the AD. The boosters definitely were not happy with the AD because of the coaching decision he made with Brian Harsin. And so the athletic director and Brian Harsin have spent the last 6-8 months just floating in the wind, just tossing around like a tumbleweed. They don't know whether they're in, whether they're out. I mean, they don't know anything, really. Brian Harsin is definitely coaching for his job this year. This AD's getting around going, are y'all going to keep me? Or are y'all going to fire me? He literally asked. He went to the president of the school and the board of directors and all that and said, what's the deal? I got 5 months left. Can I get a extension? I mean, what are we doing here? They said, nope. We're going to wait until after the football season to make any decisions. So they basically told him the same thing that we all know is the case with Brian Harsin. We're going to see how much the football team falls on its face this year. Then we're going to decide what we're going to do with you, Athletic Director Green, and you, Head Coach Harsin. And Green said, you know what? I don't even want to be in this situation. How you doing? Keep it moving. I'm out. And so he just said, I quit. I'm gone. That's it. I'm out of here. Find somebody else. I'm not sticking around for the next 5 months. Here's one of these. You can keep on, and he dipped out. And so now Auburn's got an interim athletic director while they are searching for a new athletic director 4 months before they're going to be searching for a new head coach. So they got to get the athletic director hired yesterday. I'm exaggerating, but they got to get the athletic director hired before the end of the football season, because whatever athletic director they hire, assuming Harsin gets fired, that athletic director is going to want to do his own search for the new head football coach. So it's just a disaster there. It's just a disaster. And to make matters worse, Auburn's schedule is very, very favorable in the first half of the season. So you could see a situation where Auburn starts out pretty good, maybe even gets ranked in the top 25 in the first 5-6 weeks of the season before everything completely falls apart, because the second half of their schedule is just a brutal gauntlet of games that they're going to lose the majority of. But they start out with a couple of games that they should be able to win. 3 games, really, that they should be able to win against lower classification schools. They play Penn State at home in week 2 or 3, and they play LSU at home in week 5. So their first 5 games, 3 are against lower classification schools. One's against a pretty good Penn State team, but it's at Auburn. And the other one is at home against LSU, who is a grab bag this year. We really don't know what we're going to get from LSU. It's possible, although not likely, but it is possible that Auburn starts 5-0. Now, that 6th game is on the road at Georgia, so that's a giant L, whether Auburn's 5-0 or 0-5. They're not winning that game. But it's possible Auburn could start 5-0. Then what are people going to say about Harsin? Now they also could start 3-2, then have to go play Georgia and be 3-3. Then they have a bye week. They come out of the bye week. Then they play a gauntlet of Texas A&M, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Bama. It's just brutal. The last 6-7 weeks of the season are just brutal. They're likely to lose the overwhelming majority of those. So it's just going to be an interesting kind of dynamic because of the way Auburn's schedule sets up. They could have a decent record the first month of the season, but it's going to fall apart quick after that bye week. They're going to take a beating to Georgia, then they're going to have a bye week, and then they're going to lose probably 4 of their last 6 games or something like that. So we'll see, but it's just a weird situation going on at Auburn. So for all of those reasons, there's just too many outside distractions. You're going to have an athletic director search going on now. You're going to have a head coaching search going on at some point, whether it's October, beginning of November, whatever. It's just too much going on there. So unfortunately for that reason, even though the Barn has yet to play a game, Auburn, your season is over. Sorry, it is what it is. Anyway, there you go. The first edition of the 2022 Your Season is Over video, week 0 edition. Hope you enjoyed that. Who looked good yesterday? It's hard to say. Florida State beat the bejesus out of Duquesne after like a 2-hour weather delay. North Carolina beat the bejesus out of FAMU, but it's FAMU, and they were missing 25 players, and North Carolina gave up 24 points. I do think Florida State looked good yesterday. Now, I know you're going to say, well, they played Duquesne. I know. But if you watch the game, yes, you take into account who someone is playing, but Florida State looked pretty good. They looked really fast at the running back position. Jordan Travis, I thought, played well, that quarterback. I still have some questions about Florida State defensively because, they lost Jermaine Johnson, their best player, and a couple other pieces too. But their offense, I think that offense has some potential. I think that offense has some potential this year. I know it was Duquesne, but like I said, if you watch the game, I think you have to admit Florida State looked better than you thought they would look. They looked better than I thought they would. Let's not forget, they got beat by Jacksonville State, another version of Duquesne. Was it just last year? So, look, I think Florida State and Vandy, to me, were the 2 most surprising teams yesterday. Nebraska losing was, probably going to have the biggest consequences of any game yesterday. I don't think anybody is shocked that Nebraska lost, though. We thought Nebraska would be better. They're the greatest 3-9 team in the history of the world last year. But all our losses were by 1 possession. Good. You continued the streak because you lost yesterday by 3. So, I don't know if Nebraska or Ohio State fans, it's mainly Nebraska and Ohio State fans that keep bragging about Nebraska being 3-9. But all 9 games was close, Lou. Yeah, and they're all losses too. So you need to learn how to win instead of learn how to lose. That's Nebraska's problem. Nebraska is finding a way to lose games instead of finding ways to win them. It is what it is. Doesn't look like it's going to change under Scott Frost either. Why? Hot do. So anyway, there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank God for college football, and have a good morning.